Hi everyone, welcome to this set of 110 drag and drop questions and answers for your PMP exam. This set of questions is taken from the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, the Process Groups Practice Guide and the Agile Practice Guide to get a really wide range of project scenarios and problem solving that we can go through and match up, the order and processes of things in our project management process, and project management definitions. You'll probably see between 2 and 10 drag and drop questions on the actual exam, but the power of this session is to just really get up to speed and review of all these definitions before taking the real thing. And I'll make this download available in my course on Udemy, which is currently the highest rated PMP Udemy course. It's just wonderful, and it would be great to have you there if that's the sort of thing that you're into. Let's get into the first question. And the first one we're looking at is estimating. If the team uses something similar to estimate, like data from a similar project, it's similar and it's an analogy. So we're using analogous estimating with our team. If a builder uses a measurement to estimate, like $55 a meter or $100 an hour, they are using a parameter. So it's parametric estimating. And that can be extremely useful if we've got some data around that, like $55 a meter, for example. The team adds together the smallest pieces in the work breakdown structure. So they've got all of their work packages and they add all of those together to get the overall estimate. That is our bottom-up estimating. And if a team takes the average of the optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic estimates, that is an average of 3 points. So it's our 3-point estimating. Now let's quickly check those and see how we went. And there we go. In the PMBOK Guide 7th edition from 2021, page 178, under estimating, if you want to check that out for yourself. How did you guys go with that very first one? Let's get into the next one. Project tools. Okay, the team need to see their project activities visually on a calendar. That is our Gantt chart. That's where we're seeing our project activities on a nice bar chart. The business analyst needs to show how customer requirements meet their completed deliverables. That's our requirements traceability matrix. We're tracing the requirements through to their completed deliverables on a matrix. An agile team, all right, agile is a good keyword there, wants to show the planned trend of work versus the actual trend of work. That's going to be our burn down chart. And you've seen this before, I hope. You've got the planned trend of work and what actually happens, and that's our burn down chart. It's burning down all the way there. And the last one, a project manager wants to see the number of items completed every day. That's going to be the throughput of our items, so our throughput chart. Let's quickly check. There we go, fantastic. How did you guys go with that one? PMBOK 7th edition, under visual data and information on page 188 to 190. Fantastic stuff. All right, let's see what we've got next. Okay, a few calculations. Wow, this is going to be fun. Oh, and here's a few tricks that I can tell you. We've got the schedule performance index and the cost performance index. So if you've got an index, we use divide, and if we've got the variance, we use minus. So this is actually very easy. And here's another trick. If it's the cost index or the cost variance, we always use the actual cost in our calculation. So this should be quite easy. Earned value divided by actual cost, divided by, it's an index, and actual cost, it's the cost performance index. Earned value divided by planned value, divided by, it's an index, and planned value, it's the schedule. So that's perfect. Now, actual cost variance, here we go. And if we minus the planned value, it's going to be our schedule variance. That's a wonderful way to know that variance analysis and those calculations. There we are, that went well. And that's in a Process Groups Practice Guide under page 311, Earned Value Calculations Summary Table, if you want to check that out for yourself. Pretty cool. All right, Earned Value Management. Oh, more Earned Value Management. But this looks like some scenarios. So the project sponsor approves the total planned budget. Total planned budget is our BAC, or budget at completion. The project manager needs to see how much work should have been completed, how much we had planned to have been completed at this point in time. The team shows how much has actually been completed, how much we have earned, what we have earned through our hard work being project managers and with our project team. And that leaves our last one. The project sponsor needs to know what we have actually spent. That's a wonderful tip there. That is our actual cost. Let's have a quick check and see if we got those right. We did. How did you go? Pretty straightforward, but again, these are the things that we really need to know, and these definitions are going to be very handy for our exam. From the Process Groups Practice Guide, Earned Value Analysis. Wonderful stuff. All right, let's go to the next one. And a typical sprint in Agile. Wow, this is good. Okay, what's the order of a typical sprint? This is very handy to know, and the first thing we start is we plan our sprint. And once we've planned our sprint and we kick off our sprint, I think it looks like daily stand-ups are going to be next. We have our daily stand-up, remove blockers, report on what we've completed and what we're going to complete the next day or during the day. And then during the sprint, we also do backlog refinement. So we prepare more user stories for our upcoming sprint so that we don't have no work to do coming up. Now, these two, we always end the sprint with a retrospective, guys, so very important to know. And that leaves the sprint review second to last, where we showcase the work to our project customer, and they say, hey, that is exactly what I was looking for, or no, it's not what I was thinking, because now they can actually see it. And here we go, that works perfectly. You did an amazing job. Agile Practice Guide under Common Agile Practices. Perfect stuff. All right, halfway through this little session here. And the next one is Agile Ceremonies. Oh, so what do we actually do? And we've already had some clues. So a team update, user stories with acceptance criteria. That sounds like our backlog refinement, where we're updating those user stories. We're refining the backlog, making sure user stories are ready. The team reflect on their process and their lessons learned. That's our retrospective. So we're improving our process for the next iteration or the next sprint, always trying to get better. The team agree on user stories to complete in the sprint. That's our sprint planning. And I hope you are beating me to these as we're going along. I think you can do it. The last two, the team demonstrate that usable increment. That's nice and easy. That's our sprint review. That means the team updating on what they worked yesterday, what they will do today, and raising any blockers. That's going to be our daily stand-up. Let's have a quick check of that. And it's come from the Agile Practice Guide, Common Agile Practices on page 50 if you want to check that out. Wonderful stuff. That's our typical sprint. Really getting through these ones, so doing a great job. Okay, position descriptions. Who does what in a project team? And we've got a few different ones here. Emily prioritizes the product backlog. Who does that? Can you tell me? That is the product owner. Absolutely. They look at customer value and they prioritize all of those items, so we're delivering the highest value first, ideally. Liam approves the project funding and resources based on the project charter. That's going to be our project sponsor. So they usually hold the resources and funding, and once we get that approved, we have access to that resources and funding as the project manager. Let's do that project manager next. Is it the servant leader, or is it who's in charge of project planning and monitoring? I think it is that one. Scrum Master is our servant leader who removes blockers for the project team. Let's have a quick check of this. And that has come through. Excellent work. Process Groups, a practice guide under definitions. And we've got some sponsor, Scrum Master, project manager definitions in there, which is really, really great. All right, let's check out the next one. Process Group inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs, or ETOs, as they call them. Determining the budget. Okay. Oh, and these look like all cost management things. Okay. Oh, this is actually quite tricky. Estimate costs. Well, we know that we're going to need the basis of our estimates in estimating costs. And planning cost management, that's where we create our cost management plan, our process for how we're going to work with cost. Now, determining the budget, when we have our budget, we have our cost baseline. Exactly it. That leaves controlling our cost. We're going to need some cost forecasts to control our cost. Let's have a quick check. And there it is under the process groups, plan cost management on page 99 there. So nice and easy. Last two in this little section. And we've got programs and portfolios. If James is hired for a temporary endeavor to deliver a change or business value, what does that describe? That is our project, delivering business value, and it's only temporary, remember? It's not ongoing, it's not operations. That's the difference. And Alex has a range of related projects managed as a group together. That one is our program of related projects. And so if Rachel owns a collection of project groups and operational work as well to achieve an overall strategic objective, that's going to be our portfolio. It covers everything, projects, programs, plus a little bit of operational work, all together to help achieve that strategic objective. Let's quickly check, and there it is. Process Groups, a Practice Guide, page 9, the relationship among portfolio programs and projects. Very handy to know. And also very handy to know, the last one in this little section, nice and easy, the types of project management officers or PMOs. This PMO provides a consultative role to projects and supplies templates and best practices. That one is the weakest PMO. It's a supportive PMO. The PMO requires compliance through adoption of methods or frameworks. Okay. Now these two are quite tricky because I remember the top one is directing. It's a directive PMO. So they're the ones who assign project managers directly. And that comes from the PMO and it reports to the PMO. That's directive. And controlling, they control through methods or frameworks. So that's how we're going to put that one. Let's do a brief check of that. And it's come through. I hope that has been fantastic for you as well. Page 48 on the Process Groups Practice Guide, types of PMOs. And this is just the first 10. I hope you've had a wonderful time. I truly believe that by practicing this every day, you can pass your PMP exam. And these are the definitions and information and scenarios that you truly need to know in your project management career, as well as to help you pass the exam and gain your PMP. I know you can do it. I definitely believe in you. Let's get into the next set of questions. Our business organizational matrix. Do you remember this from the PMBOK guide or looking at that? So let's start from the top. Resource availability is high. So we have a high access to resources. The project budget is managed by the project manager. So our next one is moderate to high for resource availability. The total one is PMO. So PMO is always at the top. That's the strongest matrix. So the next one is going to be just a normal, strong matrix, organizational matrix. That's where we still have quite a lot of control, but resource availability is only moderate to high. Now we get into the weak matrices, which is basically when things are managed by the function or the receiving manager. Or you might be doing a process improvement within your team, for example. Resource availability is low. Budget is managed by the functional manager. Now, I think the lowest one that we have here is organic. So remember this. In between, we've got all the different matrices, matrix strong, matrix weak. That's managed by the functional manager. And then right at the bottom, we've got the budget being managed by the owner or the operator instead of the PMO. Let's quickly check this and see how we go. Wonderful stuff that's come through. Process Groups, a Practice Guide on page 46 if you want to check that out for yourself. A bit of a tricky one to start off with, but let's see what else we have. Leadership styles, excellent. Okay, and we're definitely going to see some stuff around leadership and conflict on the exam. The project manager takes a hands-off approach and allows the team to make their own decisions. That's laissez-faire leadership. If they focus on others' growth, learning, development, autonomy, and well-being, do you know this one? That's our servant leader. We're helping the team grow. We're leading by serving the team. Inspirational motivation. Now, these can be tricky, but inspirational is transformational leadership. And the reason why I select that is because at the very end here, charismatic, that matches up with high energy, self-confident, and they hold strong convictions. That is the definition of charismatic leader. Let's quickly check, and thank goodness we got those correct. Practice Guide, the Process Groups Practice Guide, page 61 under leadership styles if you want to check that out. Oh, okay, precedence diagramming method. This is good. All right, so start to start, finish to start. Do you remember all these ones? But do we remember what they mean? And here's a trick for figuring these out, actually. The second one cannot start before the first one has started. And here, the second one cannot finish before the first one has finished. So it's in order. The second one can't finish before the first one has finished. So knowing that, let's do this. Should be pretty easy. Let's have a look. The next activity cannot start. So we've got two starts here until the previous activity has finished. So finish to start. The next activity cannot start until the previous activity has started. That's our start to start. The next activity cannot finish until the previous activity has finished. That's finish to finish. And the next activity cannot finish until the previous activity has started. Now, isn't that easy once you know that little trick? I think that's fantastic. Let's double check. And thank goodness we got that correct. The Process Groups Practice Guide 2023, page 284, under Precedence Diagramming Method. Very, very handy to know. All right, team motivation. Oh, I love this stuff. Now, this is my favorite stuff, actually. Let's see what we've got. The project work is expanding to fit the time allotted to it. That one is our Parkinson's Law, where work expands to fit the time allotted to it. The team waits until the last minute. Does that sound familiar? Maybe when we were at school and we were finishing a project and we didn't do it until the night before. That's our student syndrome. The functional manager, they motivate people with things like money, bonuses, and power. These things are external to us, so it's extrinsic motivation. Your team finds motivation in the work itself through a strong sense of purpose. It's internal, so it's intrinsic motivation. And lastly, there is not a smooth transition between tasks or team members. They're transitioning, but they are dropping the baton, just like in a baton race, like you see at the Olympics. Let's double check and make sure we are correct. And things are going very, very well. Check page 96 in the Process Groups Practice Guide under Motivation of Staff, if you want to look at that. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Okay. Oh, hey, and this one's also a really good one. So Myers-Briggs, you'll probably see a Myers-Briggs question on the exam, but it's more around team personality assessments. So we just want to sometimes adjust our approach to match the personality of the people that we're dealing with. And that shows that we have emotional intelligence. So it's part of emotional intelligence. Now, this is not too hard. Once you know this, it's not too hard. So if we're drawing energy from solitary activities, we are introverted. We're doing them ourselves. But if we draw energy from social interaction and external activities, we're extroverted. So we're outgoing. But if we prefer focusing on concrete facts, details, and present realities, we are using our senses because we're sensing those current facts and realities. But if we have patterns, possibilities, and all sorts of ideas, we are using our intuition out there. Now, if we make logical analysis and lots of thinking, we're doing lots of analysis. That is our thinking, or T. If James makes decisions based on personal values, they're feeling those values, emotions and everything else. That's what they're feeling. And lastly, if you prefer flexible, adaptable, or a spontaneous approach, you can perceive lots of different approaches, lots of different things. And lastly, if you've got an organized or planned or structured approach to life, you are judging your way forward. So you're like a judge, very straightforward and planned and organized. And all of that to say, let's hope we got that correct. And there we are. And you can find that at Myers-Briggs on Wikipedia. You can see that there. Very, very easy. Nice way to see all of those different Myers-Briggs personality profiles. Okay. All right. And more organizational management. Wow, this is good. Okay. So lots of leadership. This is going to be fun. The team's needs are met from the bottom to the top, from safety to belonging to self-actualization. If you know that one, that is our that is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There it is. Couldn't quite find it. The team takes pride in their work and sees setbacks as a positive challenge. This is where we've got McGregor's theory X and Y. Now which one was which? Gosh, this might actually trip me up. I think the Y is when we see it as a positive challenge, and the X is when the team is lazy and avoids work, and we have to take a more hands-on, authoritarian management style. So we start off not as good, and we get to better. So X, Y, Z. It goes in order. We're getting better over time. I'm going to go with that anyway. Hertzberg's theory of motivation. That's when we have hygiene factors such as job security and fairness of salary. And then we have motivational factors such as being belonging and work that really means something to us. So fingers crossed, let's make sure and have a look. And yes, thank goodness we got that one correct. So remember that, McGregor's theory X and Y. That's under motivational models on page 158 in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. And we're getting through this bunch of questions, nearly there. Oh, I love this one. Tuckman's Ladder, one of my favorites. Now, can you remember the order of this one? It's when we come together as a team, and the order is, it's a beautiful rhyme, forming. Actually, let's just do this as we go. Forming, storming, because we're coming together and we're having a little bit of conflict as we figure everything out. Then we become norming, we get to a normal way of work. And once we work through all of our conflicts, we start to get through performing, where we work together really well as a team. And at the end of our project, we adjourn. So we finish and leave, and we are adjourning in the project. And that's the one there, page 166, Tuckman's Ladder in the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. All right, who does what on a project? If Michael elicits requirements with the customer and monitors business value, he is a business analyst. But if Penny oversees and coordinates multiple projects, do you remember this one? This is our program manager. Incidentally, program managers get a 30% pay rise according to PMI and their salary report. So check out that video if you haven't already. Very, very interesting stuff. And PMP holders also have a 30% higher increase in pay than non-PMP holders, which is pretty cool. Now, if you're a manager responsible for a particular area of the organization, you're responsible for that function, a functional manager. And if you're responsible for the day-to-day workings of the company, those are the operations of the company. So you're an operational manager. And we got those right. Fantastic stuff. Page 324 and page 338 under definitions in the process groups practice guide. Let's get right into the next one, second last one in this little section. And these look absolutely fantastic. Some scope issues here. Oh, I love these. Okay, the approved version of a scope statement, the work breakdown structure, and its associated WBS dictionary. That is our scope baseline. And we might even have some work packages listed in there as well. Going above and beyond in the scope when it's not required, that is gold plating. We're adding gold to the plate. It's not really actually made of gold. We're just gold plating it. It's we didn't have to do it. Uncontrolled increase in scope. Let's say our stakeholders are requesting extra features. Now the scope is creeping out of control. A description of the project and the project scope and major deliverables. That's going to be our scope statement. That's usually it can be just a sentence, really, describing what the project is going to do. Sometimes a high-level features list as well. And lastly, the launch date is pushed out because our stakeholder kept adding features. That's going to be done, drift, and let's check this out. Let's hope we are correct. Looking absolutely fantastic. The PMBOK Guide 7th edition, if you want to check this out for yourself, page 83 under Managing Requirements. You'll probably find a lot of this under Scope in the Process Groups Practice Guide as well. Last one in this little section. You guys have done an amazing job. Agile frameworks. Oh, now you're definitely going to get something around Agile frameworks. And we get some funny ones out here. They're not all just under the banner of Agile, some of these frameworks are very different, but they all do very much the same thing. So that's a clue for us. Now, the organization applies Scrum, ways of working, to programs and portfolios. So Scrum, that is a tip for us. Large-scale Scrum, they do it only when necessary. In fact, they recommend that you don't use a scaling method because it's sort of anti-agile, actually, for small teams we want for Agile. The company focuses on organizing project teams around value streams. Now, if you remember, or if you've had some good instruction, value streams come from the Toyota production system, or Lean, and SAFe, or the Scaled Agile framework, has actually taken that idea of value streams. And so we organize our projects around value streams. It's how an item is delivered from customer order to customer delivery, and then all of the work that happens in between. A small team uses a framework that emphasizes iterative development, real customer involvement, and shared code. That's our extreme programming. We always share the code in extreme programming. Anyone can touch any part of the code at any time so that everyone learns, and that's a nice way to do it. That leaves us with DSDM, or Dynamic Systems Delivery Method. Now, the thing with this one is it always has that constraint-driven approach. If you remember our constraint triangle with our scope, our cost, and actually let's make this one the schedule, because these two items down here are fixed. That's constraint-driven delivery. Let's just double check and see if we've got this correct, and we have, and that's Agile Practice Guide, page 111, under scaling frameworks. And you've done another little section of 20 drag and drop questions on your way to passing the PMP exam. Wonderful practice. You're doing an amazing job. It takes dedication and hard work to pass the PMP, but I know you can do it, and you're definitely doing the right thing. Keep going. I believe in you. Let's get into the next set of questions. And this first one looks like change control process. All right, how do we do change control on a project? What's the first thing we do? The stakeholder. Now remember, any stakeholder can raise a change. So they're going to raise a change request, and then we need to analyze the impact of the change. Is the change going to impact anything else, like our scope, our schedule, our cost, or the go live date, any of these things? Then we need to submit the change for approval, and that those approvers are in our change management plan. Most likely it's going to be our CCB, or our change control board. So that's also outlined in our change management plan. So we can come up with that at the beginning when we're planning our project. Then we're going to communicate the outcome to the stakeholders. So was it approved, was it denied, or was it deferred? And then at the end, record the outcome and close that item and in the change log, so it's all closed off. Let's quickly check. There we go. Under PMI, we can go to change management process for a project directly from PMI. So that's a wonderful way. And a bit of a tricky one to kick off, that's our change control process. All right. Oh, now another process, risk management process. Great. Now what's the first thing we do here? We're going to need to identify the risks. That's our first thing. Then we're going to do things like add the data to the risks. First, it's qualitative data. Do you remember what that is? That is the impact of the risk and the likelihood of the risk. And we put those two things together, and that gives us how bad the risk is, or how urgent the risk is. Then we can add extra data like quantitative data. That's financial or big simulations, lots of quantitative data. Now, lastly, we want to implement the risk responses, of course. And then before that, we're going to note the risk owners and the responses to our risk. So do we mitigate the risk? Are we transferring the risk? Let's check these out. Seems like we got it correct, and that's wonderful stuff. Page 113, under Plan Risk Management in the Process Groups Practice Guide. Really, really great to check out. All right, what have we got next? Oh, wow, I feel like we've got some hard ones in this session, actually. Schedule and resources. The project manager adjusts activities within their free and total float when resources are unavailable. So we're smoothing them out. Or there's a few different ones. That's resource smoothing and resource leveling. But if it's within their free and total float, then it's a smooth ride. So it's going to be resource smoothing. because we have float available or wiggle room available in our schedule. Wow, tricky. Some activities on the critical path, they're currently in sequence, but they can be done in parallel. That's fast tracking. So we're bringing them back in line, basically instead of in sequence. Now we're going to be doing a few at the same time. Nice and easy. And schedule crashing, let's see what we've got here. The project sponsor approves extra funding when we're throwing money and resources to expedite the delivery of our activities. And then, like we said before, leveling out is when resources have been over allocated to the same time frame. We need to level them out or level out the activities. So let's make sure and check that we've got these all correct. Okay, thank goodness. Those were pretty tricky. Under resource optimization, page 291, under process groups, a practice guide. How did you go with that one? Pretty essential to know those things. Agile roles. Now, this should be a little bit easier. The Scrum Master is, who have we got? A servant leader that facilitates ceremonies and removes blockers for the team. The project team are the people who do the work. Yes, they perform the work and they create value, or also known as developers in a Scrum team, but basically the team, because it doesn't have to be development work. It could be knowledge work or research work or analysis. Representing the customer, who is that? They prioritize features in the product backlog. That's our product owner. And lastly, a stakeholder is anyone affected or perceived to be affected by the project. Let's quickly check. And that's come through. Excellent work. Agile Practice Guide under page 40, Agile Roles, if you want to check that out for yourself. All right, what have we got next? Okay. Oh, goodness, there's a lot here. The triple constraint. Do you remember the triple constraint? Now, in adaptive projects, it's one way, and in predictive projects, it's another way. So if we remember this, a variable in an agile project is always scope, and on a predictive project, scope is fixed. So we want that to be fixed, and then everything else becomes variable. So cost becomes variable on a predictive project. Time becomes variable, our schedule, and quality could be fixed or variable. So we can actually choose there how much we want to fix the quality and whether we can let that slip or not to fix some of the other items or to help along our scope, cost, or time. So for Agile, let's have a look. Cost is fixed because we've got a fixed team, and it's a fixed team for a fixed amount of time. And here we are, our fixed amount of time, and we just deliver our scope until the time and the money run out. And quality can also be fixed or variable, but ideally in an Agile team, quality is everyone's responsibility, from requirements to design to development to ultimately to release. So let's quickly check. Here it is. Absolutely fantastic. That was quite an involved one. The triple constraint. Wonderful stuff. And it's Tuckman's ladder, my absolute favorite. Forming, remember? Forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So what's our first one? The team know each other's roles and find a regular rhythm. That's just a normal way of work. The project finishes and the team moves on to other things. They're adjourning. Team members come together, but they're still independent and individual. They're forming a new team. The team comes to rely on each other and they have high trust. And when you have high trust, you can get things done faster and better. Basically, they are performing. That's the best stage to be in. And lastly, but not lastly in the actual process of things, but just as a description, storming is when conflicts arise in the team and different personalities are trying to figure their way and where they fit and what their roles are. And so we're storming through those items. Let's quickly check. And there it is, Tuckman's Ladder, page 166, PMBOK Guide 7th edition. Wonderful stuff, guys. Absolutely excellent. Process groups and EDOs. Remember our inputs, tools and techniques and outputs from the process guide, process groups practice guide. Let's see what we've got. And hang on a minute, we've got 4 answers here and 5 answers and 4 options. So, okay, a little bit tricky. And you will see these, that's the way it is on the real exam also. Team charter is for our resources. So when we're planning resources, probably under planning resource management, there's two resource ones here, actually. Let's have a look. We'll put that aside just for now. We can change it if we need to. Let's try an easier one. Planning communications management. We're going to use our communication styles assessment, just figuring out how our stakeholders want to be communicated to and what information they need. Very, very important. Planning quality management. We're going to do quality assurance, test and inspection planning to make sure that it meets the customer requirements and then check all of those off. And now we've got two left. SWOT analysis. That's more for risk and figuring out what risks we might have, our strengths and weaknesses and our threats. So I think we'll put that one aside for now. But the resource breakdown structure, let's have a look. Does that belong in planning resource management? It could. Or estimate activity resources. Oh, a bit tricky. If we're estimating the activity resources, we do want to figure out where everyone fits. So where do they fit in our project team? We're breaking down our project team and we'll do our team charter, so our ways of working as we're planning resource management. I think that's probably going to be right. Let's have a quick look. Okay, thank goodness. That was a little bit tricky, and we've got that in the process groups practice guide under all of the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs under the process groups there. From 2023, page 109 is the activity resources or estimating activity resources ones, but you can easily search for the others as well. All right, very, very handy to know. Project phases. Now, this is a bit of a palate cleanser. This is a little bit easier, thank goodness. What do we do first? Feasibility, because it's our business case and our project charter kicks off our project. Then we don't build it, we have to design it first. That's our gathering requirements and doing prototypes. Then we can build the item. Then we want to test it and do quality assurance, make sure it meets the customer need. And finally, we can deploy that item. And incidentally, if we're doing an agile way of work, we're going to do all of these for one increment and release multiple increments. But if we're in a predictive way of work, we're going to do all of these just once and finish it at the end of the project. So then we deliver in one big go at the end. So that's the difference there. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff. Let's quickly check. And there it is. Excellent work. 2 to go in this little section. So let's have a look. We've got the Agile Manifesto, one of my favorite things. Now, can you remember the Agile Manifesto? And it's handy to know because it gives us tips on how to act on an Agile project. We want to do individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Oh, and you know what? It's done the other way, but I think hopefully we get what we mean. So the customer collaboration over contract negotiation, comprehensive documentation. So working software instead of comprehensive documentation, and following a plan. No, responding to change instead of following a plan. It's a bit confusing because they're upside down, but let's check them out. And that is correct. The Agile Manifesto and Mindset, page 8. Always remember that as our way to act. Individuals and interactions working together instead of, as opposed to, we prefer it over processes and tools. Last one. Here we go. Quality tools. What do we do when we ask why something happens until we get to the root cause? That's our root cause analysis, 5 whys. To show a series of steps that lead to a defect, we're going to use flowcharts, and we can do that to figure out how a process or a system works as well when we first join a project team. Very, very handy. The problem is at the head, and the root cause ideas are in the fishbones. A fishbone diagram is also an Ishikawa diagram after the man who created it. Wonderful, wonderful diagram. And Pareto analysis is a count of the data that focuses on the few causes. So we've got a few here, and then the rest maybe not so much. But overall, this accounts for the majority of our causes. It's the 80-20 principle. The few causes with the biggest impact. Let's quickly check that we got it correct. And there it is, root cause analysis under page 249 on the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. And what else is quality is the quality of work that you're putting in to all of these questions, doing this every day, improving yourself just a little bit, getting a little bit more knowledge, and enough for you to pass your PMP exam. I truly believe that doing this work will help you, not just in your project management career, but also to pass your exam, and I truly believe that you can do it. Let's get into the next set of questions. Okay, project process groups. All right, looks like, our classic: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling and closing. And what have we got? The project sponsor approves the project charter. And the project manager identifies the project stakeholders. That happens in initiating. The project manager develops the project management plan. We are planning, and the team collect requirements and define the scope and basically everything to do with our plans: risk plan, quality plan, schedule and cost, our budget. Really, really cool. The team manages project knowledge, acquire resources. We're doing things, we are executing things, and we implement the risk responses. We're doing the risk responses as well, executing. And the project customer validates the project scope based on the quality test outcomes. That happens just before closing. So usually our project sponsor or the high-level project customer might approve of those things that we've delivered, and usually they use the test results to do that, just so that it's nice and easy. The last one is closing, of course, and where we create the final report. Let's have a look, and there we go. Process groups, a practice guide. Page 1, introduction, or basically this will come from all of the process groups. Very, very handy to know. All right, let's see what we've got next. Project artifacts. A project manager needs a feasibility study to confirm if a project will offer value. That is our business case. A project sponsor needs to formally authorize a project. We do that with our project charter. Exactly right. A project manager needs a plan for managing the project, including the scope, schedule, cost, and quality. And we just spoke about that. That's our project management plan and all of the bits and pieces that go into that, all the subsidiary plans, risk plan, communications plan. Now, if a Scrum Master needs a collaborative document that outlines how the team will work effectively throughout the project, this is our way of working, our team charter. Let's quickly check. And there we go. PMBOK Guide 7th edition, commonly used artifacts that we've got here. Team Charter is a wonderful Agile one that you'll see come up in resources in the Process Groups Practice Guide as well. All right, next one, doing great. Process Groups inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. A project manager is working to acquire resources. Okay, and I like this because we've got, it basically tells us what we're working on here. Acquiring those resources, let's have a look. Project team assignments, because who is assigned within the team? That one makes sense. A project manager sees gaps in the team's work and needs to develop the team. This is very handy. It's laid out very nicely for us, actually. What are we going to do here? Team performance assessments. We're going to assess the team performance. A business analyst is facilitating a session to identify stakeholders. We're going to do that with our stakeholder register. And the project management team directs and manages the project work. We're going to use our project management information system, or put all of our project data and information into that information system so that we can usually get a report by analyzing all of that data. Let's have a look and see how we went. Excellent work. Process Groups, a practice guide, all the ETOs, or the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs for that. Fantastic stuff. All right. Directions of influence. Do you remember this one? This is fairly straightforward. If it's senior management, a sponsor, or a steering committee, they are above where we are currently. The project team or specialists providing knowledge or skills to the project. Ooh, that's a tricky one. I wonder if that's sideways. That might be downwards, actually. People within the project, so that we are managing. So we're slightly above in the directions of influence anyway. Peers of the project manager, other middle managers and people in charge of resources in a functional area, for example, they're going to be sideways to us. And that means suppliers or government departments or even users of the system or the thing that we're delivering are outside the project team. They are outward for our directions of influence. And there we go. Absolutely fantastic. How did you guys go with that one? Directions of influence in the process groups practice guide, page 302. Excellent stuff. All right, halfway through this little section. Paul sends information to people by email who need to receive it. That is pushing information. We're pushing it out to other people. The project stakeholders can access information on a web portal at their own discretion. That is pull communication. They are pulling it towards themselves whenever they're ready to access it. Anne talks in a straightforward linear process. A sender transmits a message to a receiver. That's basic communication, so nothing fancy there. We're not actually getting confirmation that the message was correct, and we do that in interactive communication. Stakeholders have a two-way exchange, emphasizing ongoing dialogue and mutual understanding between parties. The best example of this I have heard is in Playing to Win, the book by Alan Lafley, I think, and they talk about the assertive inquiry, where this is what I think. Do you have anything else that you need to add, or do you agree? And that's just checking your understanding. It's a two-way exchange. And there we are, all confirmed. Page 252 in the process group's practice guide under communication methods. Fantastic stuff. All right, let's get into the next one. Responsibility assignment. Responsibility assignment matrix is our RAM that you'll see, but a RACI is our who is responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, and who's informed. So Olivia provides expert judgment on part of a system for a project. That means we are going to consult them on that information. They're providing their expertise. Ben creates, this is a key word here, the system flowchart to show people how it works. He is responsible for creating that item. Sarah signs off on the project deliverable, approving it for release. She is the approver. She signs off on it. She is accountable for that item. And frontline workers need to be told about changes to the system. They need to be informed. So that is our RACI. Let's have a quick check and see how we went. All locked in. Absolutely fantastic. Process Groups, a practice guide, page 293. Under Responsibility Assignment Matrix, if you want to check that out for yourself. All right, couple to go in this little section. What have we got here? Ben stops talking to Anna and retreats from the conflict situation, resolving conflict. This is withdrawing and avoiding the situation. And we'll look at this in a second, but I think that's either a lose-lose situation or a lose-win situation. But let's see, Amy concedes her position to the needs of others to maintain harmony and relationships. She is accommodating her position, so accommodating other people, Claire wants everyone to get along and asking that each party gives something up to resolve the conflict. Claire is compromising here. And Michael pushes his viewpoint on the issue at the expense of others. He is forcing the issue on other people. Now let's just double check this and make sure we got it correct. Okay, that is correct. And so what we're looking at here is smooth and accommodate. Compromising and reconciling is a lose-lose. Forcing or directing is a win-lose because you're winning and someone else is losing. And smoothing and accommodating, I think, is a lose-win. And maybe withdrawing is actually also a lose-lose, I think. The only one that's win-win is problem-solving and collaborating with your team. But check that out on page 258 under conflict management. Okay, let's see what we've got next. Interpersonal skills. James gets stakeholders together in a workshop to quickly reconcile differences and reveal issues earlier. James is facilitating and problem-solving here. Isabel thinks before she acts and is empathetic to others in a high-stress situation. That is emotional intelligence. We're looking at our effect and other people's effect emotionally. Benjamin acknowledges and clarifies and confirms to ensure understanding. He is using active listening. And Maria clearly articulates points and positions, gathering information to reach agreements. Maria is influencing here. Let's check it out. Excellent, that's all good. Process groups, a practice guide, page 331, interpersonal and team skills. Wonderful stuff. All right, let's check out the next one. And we've got some of the best stuff out there. It is risk, our favorite thing. Leah identifies a risk, but doesn't have the authority to perform the response. Leah needs to escalate this because it's outside of her control. Riley asks the project team to remove some of their planned scope to eliminate the threat. They are avoiding the threat because they're not doing that part of the project that would lead to the threat. Owen hires a contracting company to deal with a dangerous part of their project. He is transferring the threat to a third party. John takes specific action to reduce the probability or the impact of the threat. He is mitigating the threat through his actions. And Luke acknowledges that there is a risk in his functional area, but decides to take no action. He is accepting the threat. Now let's have a quick check. Looks like we got those correct. Page 303, strategies for overall project risk. Wonderful stuff. And also wonderful stuff is the last one here for opportunities as well. Very, very important. Jade discovers an opportunity to improve the system, but it's outside the scope of the project. That sounds familiar. It's like our other one. It is escalating because it's outside of the scope of our project. Liam wants to make sure that an opportunity for a joint venture actually happens. Now, that's either enhance or exploit. I think if we're definitely doing it, we're exploiting it. Let's have a look at the other ones just in case. Sam finds an opportunity in the system, but his project doesn't need it, so he offers it to someone else. He is sharing the opportunity. Anna takes steps to increase the probability of the opportunity occurring. She is enhancing that probability of the opportunity happening, which is great. And Sarah acknowledges that the opportunity is there, but decides not to take any action. Sarah is accepting that opportunity without any action. Let's double check. All fantastic. That has come through. Page 303, strategies for overall project risk. And a strategy for overall passing your PMP is exactly what you're doing right now. You're doing an amazing job. Keep going, keep learning. This is the kind of information that will help you in your career and will help you to pass your PMP exam. I absolutely know that you can do it, and I truly believe in you. Let's get into the next set of questions. Development approaches. Activities are performed once for the project with a single delivery at the end. That sounds like a predictive or a waterfall method or a traditional method, they might call it as well. Activities are repeated until correct based on feedback. So repeated until correct with a single delivery at the end. That sounds to me like we're iterating towards success there until the end. Activities are performed once for a given increment. So just for a particular increment, for each increment, we must be using an incremental approach. Let's have a look. And activities are repeated until correct. So we've got a little bit of this. And then with frequent small deliveries, those two things are a combination to form Agile. So Agile is actually iterative and incremental at the same time. And lastly, combines any elements of predictive and adaptive development approaches to get the job done. That's our hybrid approach, and that could be using a waterfall method with Kanban boards and information radiators, or it could be doing an agile method with proper sponsor approval and change control. Depending on how you want to swing it, there's many, many different ways to look at it. Let's have a look at how we did, and that all came through. Page 15 in the Process Group's Practice Guide, Project and Development Life Cycles. Fantastic. How did you go with that one? All right, agile collaboration approaches. And we've got mobbing, pairing, and swarming. Emily asks the team to work in pairs to complete work, check, and learn together. They are pair programming, or it could be side-by-side programming, or pair programming, or just pairing if it's knowledge work or something else other than programming. An issue is raised during stand-up, and multiple team members meet afterwards to solve it quickly. They are swarming around the issue. So that's what we want to do, try and solve those issues quickly. Oliver is a portfolio owner impacted by a recent change and asks multiple teams to come together for an outcome. They are mobbing. They're creating a mob, and that's all coming together, many, many different teams. Let's have a look at how we did And that is wonderful stuff. Agile Practice Guide, page 152 under definitions, if you want to check that out for yourself. All right, Agile tools. Henry asks the team to display project information in the team location, such as backlogs and risks, or backlog, I should say. He is looking at the information radiator with all of our team project information where anyone can see it at any time. Haley gathers the team around a visual tool used to track and manage workflow during a stand-up. A visual tool track and manage workflow. Sounds like a Kanban board to me. And if you remember our Kanban board, it's going to have a few different columns here, and we're going to move our user stories from in progress all the way to done right at the end there. So we're tracking that workflow. Lucas needs to see the planned trend of the work versus the actual trend of the work. And you remember this one. This is our planned trend. And then the actual trend of the work, that is our burn down chart. Exactly right. That just leaves us with one. Alice needs to know how many story points the team could complete in the next sprint during sprint planning. And that's going to be our velocity chart. Now, if you haven't seen that before, we've got the story points that we planned, the story points we completed, planned, completed, planned, completed, planned, completed. And that gives us an average of the velocity or the story points that we can complete. And we use that for our sprint planning to keep a sustainable pace so we're not doing hurry up and wait. And all of that to say, we got those correct, and I hope you did too. Page 150 under definitions in the Agile Practice Guide. A wonderful way to get up to speed. All right, number 44, some more Agile artifacts. Some of my favorite artifacts, actually. The user stories the team decides that they can complete in a sprint. That's going to be our sprint backlog. The prioritized list of features, that's our product backlog. And who owns the product backlog? Can you tell me? It is the product owner, exactly right. And adjusting the backlog to balance the highest cost risks with the highest value features. Risks versus features, we have a risk-adjusted backlog. So we're delivering some solutions to risks, but also delivering some value. We're adjusting it for risk. Part of the feature that is small enough to complete in a sprint, that's going to be our user story. And let's check those out. That has come through page 152, definitions in the Agile Practice Guide. Wonderful stuff. Okay, Agile decomposition. Oh, this is good. OKRs, user stories, and epics. And what have we got? A larger feature or deliverable, or a collection of stories around a central theme. That's going to be our epic. So epics basically are like a deliverable, and then we break those down into user stories. So where's that one? A description of an end user's need that can be completed within an iteration, similar to a work package in a traditional project. So you call them user stories or call them work packages. We're assigning them to a person so that they can complete them. But what's an OKR? That is an objective and a key result. An enterprise-led strategic direction, that's our objective, shown as a business goal, with a way to measure it, that is our key result, OKRs. Let's have a look. And there we are, fantastic stuff. Agile Practice Guide, page 150 under definitions. And we're also just over halfway through this little section. Well done. Keep going, guys. You're doing great. Request for quote. All right. Or what have we got? Emma isn't sure on what solution a particular vendor can provide. She needs more information. Request for information. The project team have a complex problem that can be to be solved by a vendor. They're going to need a proposal from that vendor on what they can do about the problem. The PMO have a clear set of criteria that can be found in the market from multiple vendors. All they need is a price. They just need a request for quote, or RFQ. Let's have a look. And that is good, looking good. Page 75, the bid process under the PMBOK Guide 7th edition from 2021. Fantastic. All right, what have we got? Procurement contracts. When scope is straightforward and requirements are well defined, we can use a fixed price contract because we don't need anything fancy here. It's just fixed price. Everything is straightforward. But when you want to incentivize the seller, or if works are expected to change, incentivizing them, we're going to use cost reimbursable contract. So that's when there's a set cost, and if they come in under that cost, then they get a bonus, basically, or they get the difference between the cost and what we were going to pay them anyway. So cost reimbursable. Useful when a precise statement of work is not available. We can just use time and materials. How much does your time cost? How much do the materials cost? And keep working until the job is done. And there it is. That's come through at page 191, agreements and contracts. Fantastic. And only a few to go in this little section. And what we're looking at now is cost management. Oh, I love this stuff. Cost management is great. So what do we do with contingency reserves, management reserves? If it's set aside to deal with planned risks, that is a contingency. It's our contingency reserves. If it's set aside for unexpected activities related to in-scope work, that is our management reserves. And you don't often find these in the real world. Sometimes budgets just don't have this. But it is a nice thing to have as a just in case or as a final Hail Mary if you need more money to come through. All of the work package costs plus the contingency reserve is our cost baseline, and then all of the cost baseline plus the management reserves become our project budget overall. And so that is exactly what we're looking for. PMBOK Guide 7th edition, page 62 under budget. How did you guys go with that one? It's such a great way to brush up on all of this information before taking the exam. Last two for this section, Agile concepts, leading by serving the team. That sounds familiar to me. Removing blockers and facilitating growth. We are doing servant leadership. Maintaining a manageable workload that allows the team to effectively work over the long term. We are keeping a sustainable pace. And that's why we use our velocity chart to make sure that we're matching our work to the previous velocity. When a developer, tester, or a business representative meet to elicit user stories, those are our three amigos, or the triad of those, the developer, tester, and customer, we might call them too. Stable, long-term, consistent teams that perform better over time are stable teams. And those are the teams we want so they can grow that intellectual property and information about the system. And then we get into that performing stage for Tuckman's ladder, which is also really, really good. And that is correct. Wonderful stuff. How did you guys go with that one? Page 34 in the Agile Practice Guide, if you want to check that out. Servant leadership empowers the team. And we're up to the last one for this section, which is absolutely fantastic. More Agile concepts and lots of concepts for Agile on the exam that you'll see. So this is perfect. Quality is integrated and maintained throughout every phase of development. From requirements to development, we are building in quality at every step. The project team plans near-term work in detail and further away items at a high level. They are rolling wave planning. So that's what we describe that. And you'll see that concept come up pretty much everywhere. There's always rolling wave planning going on. The team removes silos by including everyone they need to deliver the project or the product. They are using the whole team approach, getting everyone involved. The team information is clearly available to everyone so they can self-manage their work. They're using visual management. And all of these, or most of these, come from the Toyota production system originally, which is a great way to see where Agile came from. And that's come through as correct, page 150 under definitions. And what else is correct is the way that you are going through and learning every day to improve yourself so that you can pass the PMP exam. I know you can do it, and I believe with the work that you're putting in, you will pass the PMP exam. Keep going, keep improving. I believe in you. Let's get into the next set of questions. Okay, Agile concepts, getting opinions on the product and process, speeds, and increasing learning for future releases. Goodness gracious. Opinions on the product and the process. Oh, and that speeds increasing learning for future releases. That sounds like we're doing a retrospective. We're putting information back into our process to improve. Okay, the team come together and reflect on their process and the lessons learned. Oh, hang on a minute. That sounds more like a retrospective. So what's this one? Opinions on the product. That's going to be, maybe early and frequent feedback. We'll see if any other ones fit the bill just in case. The team finish a sprint. That sounds like a sprint review. They demonstrate the usable increment to the customer. That's going to be our sprint review. The team have a visual display of project information for anyone to see. That's our information radiator. And when the team are meeting to update what they worked on yesterday, what they're going to do today, and raise any blockers, that's our daily stand-up for Agile ceremonies. Let's have a quick look here. Okay, we did get those correct. Page 150 under definitions in the Agile practice guide. How did you guys go with that one? More Agile concepts. Oh, and some of my favorite here, definition of ready and definition of done. So a prioritized list of features to be delivered, that's our product backlog. And we break that down into user stories and we put that into a sprint. So the user stories, the team decides that they can complete in a sprint. That's our sprint backlog. Now the criteria that the team agree for when an item is ready to be worked on, that's the definition of ready, or DOR. The definition of done is the criteria that we agree on for when an item is complete. So this might be the item's been coded, it's been tested, it's been checked off with the product owner. Then we can class that item as complete. It's our definition of done. Let's have a quick check. And that's come through in the Agile Practice Guide again. Check that out for yourself. Many, many definitions for us to look through. How did you guys go with that one? Okay, Agile. Oh, lots of Agile here. The project designs by feature, builds by feature, tests and releases by feature, and has dedicated feature teams. That sounds like feature-driven development. One of my favorite ways to do Agile, and one of the frameworks that fed into the Agile Manifesto back in 2001. So really, really cool. Developers write the test first, then they write the code that will allow the test to pass. We're doing test first or test-driven development. Business analysts write the tests in user-centric language, what customers want and what customers do. That is our given, when, then, or behavior-driven development, or BDD. Work is frequently incorporated into the main build, and then it's tested as a whole. We're continuously integrating it. Continuous integration, or CI. Time-boxed research or learning, often for technical solutions or acceptance criteria, to figure out acceptance criteria with a team. That is a spike, time-boxed learning. Let's quickly check these, make sure that we got them correct. And that is looking really good. Agile Practice Guide again, look through that under our definitions for any of those to find those items. Agile measurements, the time to complete a task or a smaller piece of work, for example, a user story, that is our cycle time, just for a single task or a single small piece. But the time from customer order to customer delivery is the whole time. For a feature, for example, that a customer is going to get their hands on, that is our lead time. Now, how much was committed versus how much was completed? That's how predictable our process is. And we can do that with a velocity chart, if you remember from the previous questions, where we show the velocity or the amount of user story points that we completed in previous iterations. And then we can use that to be more predictable going forward and to put that amount of user story points in the next sprint or the upcoming sprints. The amount of work waiting to be completed is our queue size, and the measures of the ratio of value added or VA work to non-value added or NVA to the total work time shows how efficient our process is. It's process efficiency. Let's check that out just in case. And it looks like we got it right. So that's fantastic work. Page 66, Agile Practice Guide, Agile Teams Measure Results. That one was really, really good. Oh, the theory of constraints. Oh, I love this one personally. Very Agile-centric, this one. And the order of the theory of constraints, I think Eli Goldratt was the one who did this. First, we need to identify it. So we're going to grab that. And now what do we need to do? Then we're going to improve the process or streamline the process for that constraint. We're just going to do everything we can to improve it without spending money on it. Once we've improved it, we're going to keep that process just at capacity. So just below the top capacity that we can handle for that process. So doing the most we possibly can without overloading it. And then once we've done all of that, then we can spend money on it or add resources to it or add system power to it. We can elevate the constraint, but we don't want to do that before we've improved it as much as we can. I hope that makes sense. And that's just a great way to operate in a team. And that's why the theory of constraints is so great. And once we've done all of that, a new bottleneck will pop up. Once we've solved one, we'll get a bottleneck somewhere else. So we're going to repeat that on other processes. And looks like we did get that correct. So that's good. Check out The Goal by Dr. Eli Goldratt if you want to learn more about the theory of constraints. But that's basically it. It's a really, really good way to operate. Okay, Agile frameworks. Oh, my favorite, Kanban. Which one is Kanban? It is a workflow management method that optimizes work by limiting the work in progress. And when we limit work in progress, we're not task switching or multitasking. So we're just focusing on the work at hand, and amazingly, we get work done faster as a result. If we facilitate iterative progress through time-boxed sprints, when do we use sprints? We use sprints in Scrum with a focus on continuous improvement, focus on frequent releases, continuous feedback, and high customer involvement. Oh, that could be either one. Probably extreme programming, because Scrumban is a combination of Kanban and Scrum. So here we go here, Scrum with the flexibility of Kanban. We put those two things together, and that's how most Agile teams work these days, is a combination of those two things. So let's have a look and see how we went. And that has come through. Excellent work, guys. Page 99 to 111, that's all of the Agile and Lean frameworks in the Agile Practice Guide, if you want to check that out for yourself. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got next. More Agile frameworks. Wow, that's good. And you're definitely going to get some stuff on Agile frameworks in your exam, so very, very handy to know. The project designs by feature, builds by feature, tests and releases by feature, and has dedicated feature teams. We did this one before. This is our Agile feature-driven development. The team focus on constraint-driven delivery with formalized prioritization of scope. For example, Moscow. Do you know what Moscow is? Must have, should have, could have, will not have. That's how we prioritize our scope. And our constraints, remember, scope, schedule, and cost. And in Agile, scope is variable, and the other two are fixed. And the method that brought that into the workplace is DSDM. So that was back in the 90s, a wonderful way to work, and that fed into the Agile Practice Guide in 2001. A family of methodologies that emphasizes tailoring practices to the specific needs of the project and the team. That is Crystal, because remember, with Crystal, they have a range of methods depending on how big the project is. So Crystal Clear, Crystal Sapphire, and all of these ones were different stones and colors to determine how big the project was and how much governance you needed around it. And that just leaves an iterative cycles across 7 key disciplines, such as modeling, implementation, and test. That's going to be our Agile Unified Process, or AUP. Let's have a quick check. And there we are. Excellent work. Page 99 to 111 again in the Agile Practice Guide for all of those Agile and Lean frameworks to check out. How did you guys go with those ones? Okay, scaling frameworks, also very handy to know. If we apply Scrum ways of working to programs and portfolios only when necessary, that is going to be our large-scale Scrum, because less or large-scale Scrum actually recommends that we don't use a scaling method, only if we absolutely have to. Now, if we focus on organizing project teams around value streams, that's going to be our Scaling Agile Framework, or SAFE. They use the value streams method, which again came from the Toyota Production System, or Lean. A scaled approach where multiple Scrum teams collaborate through cross-team meetings. I'm not sure about that. We've got a few others. Aims to extend the Scrum practices to the organizational level. Okay, between these two, I think Scrum of Scrums is just having Scrum like a program at a portfolio level. So at a team, program, and portfolio level, basically more Scrums across more teams with a person representing for the project team at a program level, for example. But enterprise Scrum, that's when we're extending Scrum practices to the organization, across the organization. And lastly, a framework that uses Agile and Lean methodologies, that's going to be our disciplined Agile. And that has come to be owned by the Project Management Institute. So now they've got, they're integrating all of those into that one approach called disciplined Agile. And there we go, that one is correct. Page 111 under scaling frameworks. Excellent work, very, very handy to know. And only 2 more to go in this little section, so you're doing an amazing job. What have we got? Oh, and also, I love this stuff, the cost of quality. Internal failure, external failure. William wants to improve the process and provide training for the whole project team. William is preventing a quality issue from happening. Sophia is a software tester and creates a plan to find defects or errors in the product. She is appraising that product. She's checking it out. Quality assurance. That's the cost of assurance. The product fails during quality assurance testing and review with the senior user. That is internal failure. It hasn't reached the customer yet, but it has failed. We've found a defect. And lastly, the project team have released the product, but the customer reviews show that there is a major issue. It has reached the customer. It is external to the project team, so it is external failure. And that's our cost of quality. Let's double check. Excellent. We got that one right. Page 88 in the PMBOK guide, 7th edition, cost of quality, if you want to check that out for yourself. Last one in this little section. Agile scenarios. Oh, wow. Okay, if we want to involve actual users of the system early and showcase to the customers in the sprint review, that sounds like we want to do that if we have a poor user experience. Now, if we're ensuring the 3 amigos collaborate regularly to create the user stories, we're going to do that if we have probably unclear requirements. So to get clear on requirements, we can get our 3 amigos together to collaborate regularly. Now, if we have an unclear purpose for the team, let's have a look. Workshop the team charter to align the mission and the high-level features. That will give us a purpose with our team charter. That does sound correct, so let's do that first, and if it's we can always change it if this one ends up being more correct. So workshop the team charter, definition of ready and definition of done. That's going to help us get clear on working agreements, because definition of ready and definition of done are more of our ways of working. I think that's what we're going to do. Let's double check. All right, excellent work. That's come through as perfect. And page 58 in the Agile Practice Guide, if you want to check that out, under Agile Pain Points and Troubleshooting. But you know what's not a pain point is all of the wonderful work that you're doing preparing for the PMP exam and getting up to speed on all of these scenarios, all of these definitions, and a few drag and drop questions so that we're prepared for that when we get that during our exam. I know that you can do it, and I know that you can pass your exam because you're doing an amazing job studying and practicing every single day. I know you can do it. I believe in you. Let's get into the next set of questions. Okay, measurements. Proactive metrics that are used to predict future performance and identify potential issues. That sounds like leading. We're leading indicators. And this could be things like, do we have a process for what we're doing? Or are our stakeholders engaged? Those things are leading indicators. If stakeholders are not engaged, then things might be going south in the future. Now, metrics that reflect past performance and outcomes, providing insights into what's already occurred. So things like customer sales or things that have already happened, those are lagging indicators. Measurable objectives or measurable values used to assess the success of project activities and overall performance. It could be either of these. I think that's going to be our KPIs, just just general measures or key performance indicators for our project. How are we measuring the things on our project? And a high-level written goal with the measures to get there. That's our objective, high written goal, and key results. Those are the measures, or OKRs, that we might see in Agile. Let's quickly check that out. And it looks like those are correct. From the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, if you want to check that out, key performance indicators on page 94. How did you guys go with that one? First one off the ranks in this little section. So really, really good. Measurement pitfalls. Okay, where what we measure influences the behavior of the people that we're measuring. That is the Hawthorne effect. And so be careful. If you measure how fast things go, then people will do everything in their power to go really, really quickly. But that might cost us quality. So the quality might go down. So we have to be careful what we measure, or just be aware of it. Measuring things that are not actionable. That might be vanity metrics, because we're just measuring them, but we can't actually take any action on them. What's the point? It's just for our own vanity. Or as an executive, this does happen quite a bit. You've probably noticed. If what we measure is not achievable, then we get demoralized. So we're demoralized because we're measuring something and we just cannot ever see ourselves achieving it. And using metrics to validate our own opinions, we are confirming our own opinions. That is confirmation bias. Have you ever done that? You've gone out and found a whole bunch of data just to confirm your own opinion, and then you say, well, see, look, the data confirms what I said, but there's a whole bunch of other data that we didn't actually look at. Anyway, I could talk about this stuff for hours. And there it is, that's come through. Measurement pitfalls in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, page 111 to 112. How did you guys go with that one? All right, more measurement pitfalls. Oh, well, seems like there are a lot of pitfalls when we're measuring things. Measuring things that aren't actionable. If you remember, that was our vanity metrics. Looks like there's just 2 extra ones here. So using metrics as a beating stick instead of helping remove blockers. That is misusing the metrics. Have you ever had someone use these metrics and just say, well, you just need to go faster? But really, if we're leading properly, or especially in Agile servant leadership, we should be using the metrics and saying, how can we remove those blockers for you to get what you need? How can we get you what you need to do the jobs that you need to do? Using metrics to align with our own opinions, that is confirmation bias again. And the last one, this is one of my favorites. If 2 things happen at the same time, it doesn't always mean that one caused the other. For example, that happens there and it happens there. They're very, very similar, but that doesn't actually mean that those 2 things are caused by each other. And a classic example of this is drownings versus ice cream sales. Drownings go up at the same time as ice cream sales, so people thought that ice cream caused drownings. But really, it was the hot weather, because more people go swimming in the hot weather and more people eat ice cream in the hot weather. Maybe a little bit morbid, that one, but it's a good example. And let's just quickly check. There we are. PMBOK Guide 7th edition, page 111 and 112, measurement pitfalls. All of these things really, really good to be aware of as we go through our own projects, not just for the exam. So that's pretty cool. All right, the benchmarking process. Oh, now how good is this? And also, when do we use benchmarking? Well, what do we do first? We want to find the process that we want to improve. Select the process. Here we go. So that one's good. And why do we do benchmarking? We use this to find opportunities to improve. We benchmark our process against another team or organization's process to find ways that we might improve. So we want to figure out the current situation, our process, and then the organizations that we want to compare it to. So ours and theirs, and then we want to document our current process so that we've really got all of our current situation laid out. And then once we've done that, we need to collect all of the data from other organizations so we can compare it. And that's what we do next, or collect and compare to the other organizations. And we find those improvements that we can make, and we plan and implement those changes. Then we review those results and we repeat. And you'll find that consultants, so the big consultancy firms, let's quickly check though. Okay, that's right, great. But the big consultancy firms like KPMG or PwC or McKinsey, they actually use benchmarking a lot because they have a lot of data from all of the other organizations that they've already worked with. And so that's where the power of working with those consultancies comes in. Page 249 under benchmarking. And how did you guys go with that one? It's a great way to get ideas for your projects or improvements. Types of analysis. Analysis on whether work should be completed internally or purchased from an external supplier. We're figuring out whether we need to make it ourselves or buy it. Make or buy analysis. Prioritizing our stakeholders by their influence and impact is stakeholder analysis. And you remember what this looks like, don't you? It's like a matrix, and we've got 4 quadrants basically, of 1 to 10 and 1 to 10. And one is our influence, and one is the impact that they could have, that our project will have on them. And really, we want to focus on the people with the highest impact to them and the highest influence that they have on us. So all of that is very, very, it's just a great way to work, and a very good thing to be aware of. Analyzing how much contingency and management reserves are remaining, that is our reserves analysis. And that looks like a little burn down chart, actually. We've got our reserves and how much do we have remaining? Just pretty simple. Doesn't have to be too complicated. Evaluating how changes in key variables impact project outcomes. Okay, last one is our sensitivity analysis. And what else can we call sensitivity analysis? It is a tornado chart because we've got 0 here, and is it a little bit to the left? Is it negative or is it positive? Negative, positive. And it ends up looking like a tornado. Let's quickly check. And that is good. Page 174 to 176, Data Gathering and Analysis in the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. Wonderful stuff. All right, more types of analysis. Let's see what we've got. Analyzing a risk probability and impact. That is our risk qualitative analysis. And so that's a good way to do it. 5 whys, Ishikawa diagram or Pareto diagrams help us find the root cause of the problem, root cause analysis. Using statistics to find trending data, trends are regression. It's a regression to the mean. So it finds the trend over time. And analyzing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that's an acronym for SWOT, our SWOT analysis. Let's have a little check. And that one is correct. Wonderful. Page 174 to 176, Data Gathering and Analysis in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. How did you guys go with that one? That one is not too bad. Pretty straightforward and really good to be up to speed with all of these terms that we're going to see in the real world and on the exam. A list of categories broken down from high level to low level, or risk categories. That is our risk breakdown structure. And we might put these into categories like commercial risk, management risk, or system risk, and then we can break them down further. So what are all the system risks that we typically see? And it's a great way for us to brainstorm risks and then to use them in the future within our same company. So pretty handy. Adjusting the backlog to balance the highest cost risks with the highest value features. That is our risk-adjusted backlog. And we've seen that before, definitely using that in Agile. Evaluating risks based on their potential impact, using subjective judgment and expert opinions. Subjective judgment is qualitative. It's our qualitative risk. But analyzing the risks based on statistical and mathematical methods is quantitative. It's our quantitative data. We're quantifying it with numbers. And let's check that out. There it is, page 231 under Risk Management Plan in the Process Group's Practice Guide from 2023. Wonderful stuff. All right, only 3 to go in this little section. You're doing really, really well. Let's see what we've got. Clear real-world measures of the risk impacts and likelihoods. Those are our risk definitions. And risk definitions are really handy because then if we've got a likelihood of 1 to 5, we're saying, what does that actually mean in the real world? Is a likelihood a 20% chance of it happening? Or it's only going to happen once a month, or once a year, or once a day? What does that look like in our organization? And each organization will be different, so we have to define it. Pretty cool. I really like that stuff. The person accountable for the risk and its outcome is the risk owner. Maybe that makes me a little bit weird with, I like risk so much, but hey, it's everywhere. So we want to manage it properly. The controls, mitigations, and other responses are our risk responses. Wonderful. And a list of risks, including the title, impact, status, owners, and responses. We put all of our risks into that risk register. Let's check that out and see what we've got. And there we are. PMBOK Guide, 7th edition, 2021, page 189 under logs and registers. Excellent. How did you guys go with that one? 2 to go in this little section. So let's keep going. Assessing the stakeholders by their power, urgency, and legitimacy. That is our salience chart. Similar to a stakeholder matrix, but we have 3 things, and they call it maybe it's a 3D or a cube version of the analysis as well, because there are 3 parts, not just 2. So prioritizing the stakeholders according to their impact and their influence, that is our normal stakeholder matrix. Now, what's a document that lists all of our project stakeholders, detailing their interests, influence, and the impact on the project? That's going to be our normal stakeholder register. And classifying stakeholders by their current and desired level of support is our stakeholder engagement matrix. Now, do you remember with the stakeholder engagement matrix how we rank them? It's are they unaware? Are they resistant? Are they neutral? Are they supportive? Or are they leading? And we want to put a C for their current state and a D for their desired state. So if they're unaware currently, we want in the future, we desire them to be supportive. And so that's our stakeholder engagement matrix. Just a little bit of extra stuff there, and that is correct. So we've got that, and that's wonderful. Page 250, stakeholders in the glossary. Nice and easy to find. Last one, you have done an amazing job. This is the last one for this particular section. Michael asks stakeholders to cast votes or to rank or narrow down a list of features. Wonderful way to do it. If we're voting, multi-voting is going to be the one. Now, multi-voting, we might have 5 dots. Can also be voting with dots. We might have 5 dots to put towards different features. And so everyone uses up all of their dots, and you could use 5 dots on one feature if you wanted to, or you could spread them across different features. And that way it ends up just people really end up getting what they want. So it's a really good way to do voting. Leah prioritizes items with the highest value and the lowest effort. That is our prioritization matrix. And that just looks the same as our other matrices. That is just like this with the 1 to 10 of highest value and lowest effort. If it's low effort, we can put it as a 10. And we want to be doing the ones with the highest value and the lowest effort. Pretty simple and a good way to prioritize. Oliver is using SAFE, or the Scaled Agile Framework, prioritizing features using a method similar to the cost of delay. That is the weighted shortest job first, or WSJF. Now, it is very similar to the cost of delay, so just keep that in mind. You shouldn't have a calculation on that, but it's good to know. And with our cost of delay, we want to choose the highest value that it comes out of that calculation. Ruby prioritizes features by must-have, satisfiers, and delighters. That is our Kano analysis. And remember, delighters in today's terms become satisfiers in tomorrow's terms. So over time, people become used to it and they start expecting those things. So delighters become satisfiers, and then over time become must-have quality. For example, electric windows. In the 80s, in 1980s, it was a delighter. It was an amazing thing, or maybe in the 90s. And now today, it's just a standard must-have part of quality. Let's quickly check how we went, and it looks like we've got a winner, but also a winner is the way that you are going through these questions and improving yourself and improving your knowledge every single day. I think this is absolutely fantastic, and it's a wonderful way to prepare for your exam, and also truly the best thing to improve your general project knowledge. Projects are so important, and by getting this skill, you are doing something important too. And I'll see you in the next set of questions. Prioritizing using a dollar benefit and versus the time it will take to deliver. That sounds like a prioritization matrix, but we might have to come back to that, I'm not sure. So that could be a few things. Maybe the cost of delay? Let's check. Oh, it could actually be the cost of delay. Let's go with that one. I think that's more likely. The dollar benefit we use, and then we check that against how long it's going to take. So how long that benefit is going to be delayed. Perfect. Okay. Thank goodness. Prioritizing by must have, should have, could have, and will not have. That's our Moscow way of prioritizing. And evaluating and ranking options based on different criteria that we choose. That's our multi-criteria decision analysis. And multi-criteria, this is such a great way. If you've got a really complex project or lots of complex criteria, this is a fantastic way to prioritize. Find yourself a good template for that one. I have some templates for this as well, but that's a really good way to do it. And prioritizing by effort and value, that's going to be our prioritization matrix. Okay, let's quickly check. That seems to be correct. How did you guys go with that one? A good way to start us off. Estimating methods. Great. So we're prioritizing, we're estimating, all very important things to do. The team estimate on the effort, high and low estimates discuss, and then re-estimate until a consensus is reached. That is our wideband Delphi estimating. Now, just as an aside, that's also planning poker in Agile. And planning poker was based on wideband Delphi estimating, basically. So we discuss the high and low, discuss their reasons, and then we try and form a consensus based on that. Now, does it have to be perfect? No, but you'll find that's a really good way to get pretty accurate estimates. Involving estimates the size or effort of tasks by comparing them to the smallest one. It's comparing them, they're relative. And we also do this in Agile, where we have a small user story and we give that one story point. And then every other story after that is relative, is sized relative. So, and it usually goes in the Fibonacci number sequence. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and then 13, and so on and so on. I won't go into that in full detail, but that's just a brief overview of relative estimating. A weighted average of 3 estimates. That's going to be, now when it's a weighted average, we have the optimistic 4 times the most likely. So it's weighted towards the most likely. And then the pessimistic, we add those all together and then divide it by 6. That's our PERT or beta estimating. Similar to our 3-point estimating that we've seen before. Using something similar to estimate, we're using an analogy. It's analogous estimating. And that's from page 178 in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition under estimating. How did you guys go with that one? All right. Wonderful way to kick this one off. Really, really good job. James needs to see project activities visually as bars on a calendar. He is looking at a Gantt chart. Dylan has brainstormed dozens of ideas and needs to group them into similar categories. He needs to find their affinity to each other. Hannah needs a count of defects on a bar chart so she can find the most occurring ones. That is our histogram, basically similar to a bar chart. Matthew has a complex defect and needs to find the root cause. He's going to use a cause and effect diagram. And what else do we call a cause and effect diagram? It could be a fishbone diagram or an Ishikawa diagram under the name of the person who created it. And Mia is sequencing project activities and finding their dependencies. We can do that with a schedule network diagram. And all of those have come through correct. How did you guys go with that one? PMBOK Guide 7th edition, page 188, visual data and information. Now keep going. If you're not getting these correct, you can always review them. It's always here. You can always come back to it. Let's see what we've got next. A description of the project and the product scope and major deliverables. Okay, this is all of our wonderful scope items. That's going to be our scope statement. It's just can be a sentence and then a list of features, just the major deliverables. Using a visual example of the work decomposition into work packages. We're taking those high-level deliverables and we're turning them into smaller and smaller pieces. We're decomposing them. That's going to be our work breakdown structure. A matrix containing any additional attributes for each of those work packages. That's going to be our work breakdown structure dictionary. We had resources, cost, duration or time estimates, quality details, who signed off on it, all of that extra information. A piece of work or functionality small enough to be assigned to a person or team is going to be our work package. And that's what we're breaking things down to, that smallest level, a work package. But in Agile, if we're breaking down features, now notice it's the same concept, it's a feature, and we're breaking it down into user stories. We're calling it a different thing, but the concept is exactly the same. User story mapping. In fact, user story mapping, we're doing it on the customer journey as well. So maybe we've got a customer step-by-step little flow chart. They take this step, next step, and then we break this feature down into those user stories as they go along the customer journey. That's customer story mapping. Let's quickly check. Okay, that is correct. Page 236, scope baseline for all of those scope items. Halfway through, now an agile, predictive, or hybrid project processes, ceremonies, and tools. Oh, this is great. This is the project manager talent triangle. And you'll see this in the process groups practice guide. You need ways of working. Now, what if we have collaborative leadership, conflict management, team building, and effective communication? Those are our power skills. And we need all of these three things to be a good project manager, by the way. Understanding value priorities, making good business decisions, good commercial decisions, making sure we're delivering that business value, and continuous improvement. That's our business acumen or business knowledge. Let's quickly check. And that is great. Project manager competencies under page 58 in the process groups practice guide. Now, if we have a sequence of activities which make up the shortest possible duration for the project completion, what is that? That is our critical path. It's critical because we can't move anything, because it's the shortest duration we can possibly figure out to finish the project in. The amount of time an activity can be delayed without affecting its successor activity, that is the free float of that activity. How far can we float it if we need to? Now, the amount of time an activity can be delayed and still keep the whole project on schedule, that is our total float. So free float and total float. And the date when major items will occur are milestones when things are going to be delivered, and the project days that are available for scheduled activities. So do we have any days off or holidays? Do we not work weekends, or do we only work 2 days a week? What are those things? Let's put those on our project calendar. And that's from a process groups practice guide, page 262, under the critical path method, which is really, really handy to know. Now, how do we plan scope? Let's have a look here. First thing we always do in any situation is create our plan for how we're going to manage it. So we create our scope management plan. Now, the next thing we need to do is collect the requirements, or elicit or gather the requirements from our stakeholders or customers, so that we know what they want and what we need to deliver. Then we need to, what do we need to do next? Create the scope statement. That's that high level, with the high level statement with a list of high level features. Then we can break that down with our work breakdown structure. So we're going to break that down into smaller and smaller pieces that a person can work on. And what's that called? that's called a work package. But we do that last because before that we need our work breakdown structure dictionary, and that has all of the extra attributes, remember, like resources needed, the time estimates, or the cost estimates for those work packages. And then at the end, we have that final list of work packages. And there it is. Excellent. Process groups and management phases under page 22 to look at that process. Very, very handy to have. And of course, once we've planned and gathered and collected our scope, then we can look at planning our schedule and figuring out how we're going to do that. And remember, the first thing we do is planning out how we're going to manage our schedule. Who does what? What are the steps that we're going to take? What's our schedule management plan? Now, what do we need to do next? Probably create the list of activities based on the scope and the milestones. Then we want to sequence those activities. So do they have any dependencies? Now, once we know that, we can estimate the activity durations. And we've already looked at a few estimating methods, which is really, really great. And right at the end, we have our approved schedule, which becomes our baselined schedule. So then it needs to go through a change request in order to change it. If we're in a predictive way of work, just a few little extra bits of information. Oh, that's always a good bit of fun. Page 58 under schedules, and the last two in this little section, you're doing an amazing job. First, second, third, fourth, and fifth under project integration. The first thing we do is our project. Oh, no, hang on. I nearly got caught there. Business case. So we need a feasibility study. Is the project going to deliver value? Is it worth doing in the first place? That's our business case. Then we initiate our project with a project charter. The project sponsor signs off on it and gives us access to funding and resources. Then we create our project management plan, and we plan out all of those things like we just saw previously, and a few extra things: procurement, risk, communications, resources. And as we go through the project, we need to access and use our project management information system. And that could be anything. That could be a system like Jira or Microsoft Project or Monday.com or any of those things. And lastly, we're going to close off the phase or the project with our final report so that everyone is on the same page. And then we are page 288 or 211 under final report and project management information system in the process groups practice guide. Wonderful stuff and well done. Last one here. And why did they have to give us calculations for the last one? Oh, that's a bit harsh. Okay, but here is actually, you know what? It's actually pretty good because I can tell you a little trick here. And the trick is with all of these things, if we've got the cost performance index or the schedule performance index, those two things, one is how much we should have delivered at this exact point in time. If it's greater than one, we have delivered more, and that's for both of these. If it's less than one, we have delivered less. So let's have a look. Cost performance index is 1.2, so we've delivered more than what we should have at this point in time. So we are under our budget because we've delivered more. So project is under budget. There we go. Nice and easy. But the schedule performance index is 0.8. So we've delivered less than what we should have at this point in time. The project is behind its schedule. Now it's the same for the cost variance and schedule variance, except the number is 0. So if it's less than 50 for cost variance, we're going to be over our budget because we've delivered less. So that's very handy to know. And schedule variance is over 0. So we've delivered more, which means our project is ahead of schedule. And so we'll just get rid of that and double check this, make sure that that is correct. And that has come through, which is really, really good. That was actually good to know. So I'm glad we did finish with that one. And I'm also glad that you're here practicing and improving your knowledge every single day to pass your PMP exam and get better at project management. Project management, delivering value and really making change and doing great things in the world. It's such an important skill, and you're learning it and growing and improving and getting even better skills that will help you deliver that value. I cannot think of a better way to spend my time. Maybe I need to get out more, but I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I'll see you in the next set of questions. Dealing with complexity, an iterative process of adding greater levels of detail as they become available. Okay, that to me sounds like progressive elaboration. And a lot of these techniques for dealing with complexity are actually match up with the Agile way of work. So Agile was sort of created to deal with a lot of this complexity and uncertainty and even volatility, that classic VUCA that you hear about. And so what's the next one? A small, low-cost version of the real thing. That sounds like a prototype. So we want a small, low-cost version of the real thing to see if the real thing might actually work. That could be a model, or it could be a storyboard, or even a process map, just to see if it's going to work. Tests of similar items to the real thing in a controlled environment to identify cause and effect. Experiments and simulation, very similar, these things, but if it's a test, we're going to go with an experiment. And if it's a scenario, similar scenarios or data used to find insights, I think we're going to do a simulation there. And Monte Carlo simulation is something you'll find in quantitative data, especially for our risk, where we do 1,000 different runs or tens of thousands of different runs of the same scenario, but with different variables for each of the inputs. Anyway, data is one of my favorite things, if you can't tell, but also one of my favorite things is we got that correct. How did you go with that one? Dealing with complexity on page 120 in the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. What a wonderful start to this little section. Okay, tailoring scenarios. Use value stream mapping. Oh, so we've got the approach and the situation here. So if stakeholders are not engaged, let's have a look. Well, which way do we do this? Let's start on the right-hand side. When do we use value stream mapping and Kanban boards to visualize the work and track issues? Maybe if there are issues and there are high rates of scrap, we're going to use value stream mapping to map out the process and to find non-value added items and to find rework and queues and all those sorts of things. That's what value stream mapping is for, to find issues and waste in the process. Okay, so we got that one. This one's pretty tricky. Streamline approval decisions through fewer people up to certain value thresholds. We're going to do that if there are long delays for approvals. So if we have long delays for approvals, we can have fewer people approving them. And so it's not going through too many people. And we can have different value thresholds. So we don't have to have people approve millions of dollars. We can have smaller amounts and different thresholds there. That's actually a really good problem-solving one. Use feedback loops to check whether sufficient information is being shared. People unsure of how to do the work, or stakeholders not engaged. Well, the last one is adding more guidance and training and verification. That's definitely for if we're not sure of how to do the work. And that means feedback loops and checking on information that we're sharing will help with stakeholder engagement. That was actually pretty tricky. Let's check. Okay, we did get it correct, so that's good. How did you guys go with that one? Page 151, under Tailoring Suggestions in the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. So that's a pretty good one. All right, Tuckman's Ladder, one of our favorites. We love good old Tuckman's Ladder. Team members are getting acquainted, establishing ground rules, and forming initial impressions. That could be forming, unless we've got another one, but we'll start there. Team members are building relationships, resolving conflicts, and working together as a team. They are storming. Team members are disagreeing over roles and responsibilities, creating collaboration challenges. That's more like storming. Maybe if they're building relationships, they are starting to come into norming. And the team complete their tasks, reflect on their achievements, and transition out of their roles. They are adjourning. They're finishing up. The team is operating efficiently, leveraging strong collaboration to achieve high levels of productivity. They are performing. That's when we build that high level of trust, and now we are performing really, really well as a team. And that one came through. Wonderful stuff. Page 166, PMBOK Guide 7th edition, Tuckman Ladder. Excellent. How did you guys go with that one? All right, artifact scenarios. Ken would like to transition the company to a new customer relationship management system and needs to evaluate the benefit, costs, risks to secure approval. He does that with a business case, of course, before a project charter. So Mary has received approval to develop new software and needs to outline the project scope, stakeholders, and roles to formally authorize the project. Oh, I was going to go with project management plan, but if it's to formally authorize the project, I think it's going to be project charter. Well, let's see. Tim needs to develop a document defining how his project will be executed, monitored, and controlled and closed. That's our project management plan. Rob is developing strategies for engaging people, managing expectations, and ensuring effective communication throughout the project. That's going to be our stakeholder management plan, how we're managing the stakeholders. And that is perfect. Wonderful stuff. Page 184, Strategy Artifacts in the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition. Predictive and adaptive scenarios. Okay, predictive has fixed scope and requirements at the beginning usually, and then we need a change request if we make changes to those as the project goes along. Agile has adaptive planning. Agile also has incremental delivery, predictive has sequential step-by-step phases. Predictive also has detailed planning, whereas Agile has our cross-functional teams. And do you remember our cross-functional teams? The T-shaped team member. So a broad range of different skills, but one deep specialty. So that's our T-shaped generalizing specialist. Very, very important to have in the team if you can. Let's quickly check that one. And there it is. Excellent. So those are your predictive and agile ways of working. All right, let's see what we've got next. More predictive and agile and adaptive. Excellent. I like these ones because they're some of my favorites. The product backlog, of course, is one of our agile ways of working. The sprint backlog is also one of our agile ways of working, where we put enough user stories for the next 2-week sprint. The work breakdown structure we'll usually use in predictive. And what's something similar in Agile? It could be user story mapping, or it could be breaking down epics into user stories. Change management plan, that's going to be in predictive. And risk management plan, that's going to be in predictive. Burn down chart is what we're going to use in Agile. So let's quickly check those ones. Wonderful stuff. All right, that has come through. How did you guys go with that one? I like those ones. They're not too difficult. All right, predictive and adaptive. This is good. I love this. Great sequence of questions, this one. Agile has user stories. Work breakdown structure. That's going to be predictive. Project charter. Every project has a project charter. So we can kick off a project, whether it's Agile or Waterfall or predictive. It still needs that project charter to get access to the resources. So that means rolling wave planning we're going to use in either Agile or predictive, or when we combine them together. It's a hybrid approach. Let's just double check. And there we go. Excellent work. All right. Now, hopefully that's the last. There we go. So no more adaptive and predictive ones, but 3 in a row. That's pretty good. Now we've got some more tricky ones, I think. The project team has been experiencing communication delays and misunderstandings. If they're doing that, they need an information radiator to get more communication, to communicate all of the project information in the team area. I think that's good. The team development team is facing issues with frequent rework and misaligned expectations. Oh, hang on a minute. Co-located teams could have also worked here. So, let's have a look. For this one, I think continuous feedback loops will help us with frequent rework and misaligned expectations. So we're getting more feedback and closer feedback. The project team is struggling with visibility into the project status. Now that is our information radiator, leading to confusion and delays in addressing issues. That means communication delays. We want to co-locate our team so that we get that close communication. We don't have to wait 3 days for someone to respond to an email. We can just look over our shoulder and chat to the person who's sitting right there. That means schedule crashing. The project is falling behind schedule due to unforeseen delays, and the team needs to find ways to accelerate the completion of critical tasks. They can do that with schedule crashing, which is throwing resources and money at the project to expedite certain tasks on the critical path. Okay, and that one has come through. Project situations. Very, very cool. All right, more project situations. These are pretty good, actually. So the team is planning a new project and they need to assess what they're good and bad at to make informed decisions. Is that a retrospective, or is that going to be good and bad? So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's going to be our SWOT analysis. The team is struggling with aligning their development efforts and ensuring that they deliver features in a strategic order. That's our product roadmap. And a product roadmap doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can just be the sequence of features that we're delivering. Or we can put it on a Gantt chart or a calendar, or we can put it on a schedule network diagram. Any of those things will do. It's just a way of visualizing how we're going to deliver the work. After completing several sprints, the team is experiencing recurring issues and inefficiencies that are affecting their performance. Let's use a retrospective to check in on the work and improve our process if we can. The project manager needs to quickly estimate the duration and cost of a new project but lacks detailed information. We can use an analogy, a similar item or a similar project to estimate quickly. And there we go. Those answers are correct. Wonderful stuff. Now you're up to the last one for this particular section. You're doing a fantastic job. And surprise, surprise, it's more agile versus predictive. Well, I love these ones, so I don't mind. I hope you like them as well, but we can do these pretty quickly. Scope is fixed on a predictive project. Scope is variable because we just reprioritize the scope in the product backlog. Exactly. Scope management plan, we plan all of our scope up front, but we have a product backlog in Agile, epics and user stories we have in Agile, and deliverables and work packages. And you see how these things are very much the same, but just with different names and slightly different ways of working. But again, in Agile, we just want to keep the effort to manage all this stuff light. So we're spending more time doing the work and less time on all of the documentation. Let's quickly check. And there we go. Wonderful stuff. And also wonderful stuff is that this is the last question in this particular section. So you've done an absolutely fantastic job. Well done in getting through this, and well done in improving yourself and doing the work and learning and getting better and doing everything that you need to do to pass the PMP exam, and also to improve your general project management skills, which will take you so many places because you're delivering value for organizations. It's such a valuable skill, and you're doing the right thing, and I'll see you in the next set of questions. Okay, one of my favorites, Agile versus predictive. Now, what have we got here? Agile's pretty simple. I love this stuff. Product and sprint reviews. Definitely. We're having a sprint review at the end to see if our increment matches what the customer wanted. Close customer contact we're always going to have. So we prefer talking face-to-face to get all of those extra visual cues and tonality cues that you don't pick up on when you're sending an email. We're going to have a complete requirements document in predictive, and we're probably going to have system documentation instead of reviewing the actual product. And in predictive, we might have a schedule network diagram to show the order of our things, like on a Gantt chart. But in Agile, it's a similar idea, but we're going to have a product roadmap instead. So really just called a different thing. You could use a Gantt chart for your product roadmap, and that's what I personally do in the real world. All right, that was a pretty good one to kick off with. I like that one. So how did you guys go? Let's go into the next one. Planning schedule management. Oh, these are process groups, inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. Oh, these are tricky. Okay. Planning, well, hang on. The first one's not too bad, because what's the first one that we always do? We're planning schedule management and we're creating our schedule management plan, so how we're going to manage our schedule. If we're sequencing our activities, precedence diagramming method, we might need to know the precedence diagramming method for what comes first and what comes next. We're sequencing it. Okay, let's try that. Developing the schedule is going to, that's probably going to be the critical path method, and we can move that if we need to. Defining the activities. Gosh, this is actually pretty hard. Defining the activities, we're going to use decomposition because we're taking our scope and decomposing it into the activities. And I thought that was strange. We've got 2 sequence activities. So leads and lags can be used here at the same time as our precedence diagramming method in sequence activities. That's why I thought it was strange. Let's double check and make sure that we got that correct. Well, the other way around, but both of them were for sequence activities. So thank goodness, that was pretty good. Page 89 under plan schedule management. Very handy information to have. Okay, that was a bit trickier. How did you guys go with that one? Procurement now, a benchmark for our quote prepared by an outside professional estimator. And we could have commercial databases of information, or we could go to consultancy firms like KPMG or McKinsey who have that information on other people in the industry. All of these we look at as our independent cost estimates. Defining the scope to be included in the contract and the terms of reference, that's going to be our statement of work, what the vendor needs to bid on, and used to ensure that the prospective vendors all have a common understanding. We're going to hold a bidder conference so everyone is on the same page and no one gets preferential treatment that could come back to bite us later. That's great. We did it. Great. Excellent. Page 74. Fantastic. And another one. I think these are getting trickier now. So hopefully it's not always getting trickier up to 110. But if you want to check that out, PMBOK Guide 7th edition, working with procurements. All right. Procurements again. Oh, goodness. Used to explain the difference, the list of potential sellers. Expand the list of potential sellers. How do we do that? We advertise. So if you've got a government contract particularly, you might need to advertise that opportunity so all of the vendors have an opportunity to bid. And again, then they can't come back later and say, well, we never heard about this and it's unfair. So it just keeps us safe. Contested items in a project where the buyer and seller can't agree on any changes, that's a claim and claims administration. And last one, details on how we choose our vendor, including capability. That's how we select them, our source selection criteria. Let's double check. That's come through. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Hopefully that's the last one on procurement. Goodness me. Okay, more ETOs. Goodness, this is a really tricky one. Okay, subdividing project deliverables into smaller, more manageable components is creating the work breakdown structure. Finding the number of work periods needed to complete individual activities is estimating the activity durations. And all of this is going to be in our process groups practice guide. So we can check this out. Developing approaches to involve project stakeholders based on their needs. That's planning stakeholder engagement. And lastly, developing the document that formally authorizes our project. That's our project charter. Let's double check. And that is wonderful stuff. Process Groups Practice Guide, if you want to check that out for yourself, under all of those inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. Risk parameters. They are throwing all of the fun stuff at us today. Okay, the period of time we need to respond to the risk in for it to be effective. That is the urgency, I would say. And we can always shuffle these around if we need to. The ease with which the results of the risk can be recognized, that's how easily we can detect the risk. The period of time between the risk occurring and when we might discover it, that's how long it's lying dormant. So what's the dormancy of the risk? And how related the risk is to other project risks, How connected is that risk to other project risks? Let's double check. Wonderful stuff. Well done. All right. A little bit tricky for those risk ones, but page 247, assessment of other risk factors. And only 4 to go in this little section. So you're doing an amazing job. Consider pair work. Oh, agile scenarios. Okay. Oh, goodness me. Consider pair work, shoulder checks or code inspections, test-driven development, and workshop the definition of done. When are we going to do that? I think we're going to do that when we have too many defects. So we can workshop the definition of done, use test-driven development for quality, and shoulder check and pair programming to make sure that we're finding those defects. I think that would work. Reduce the story size, the user story size, and estimate with the people doing the work. We're going to use those things if we have inaccurate estimation in our team. These are tricky. Build in a Slack card to refactor code and ensure developers are part of user story creation. That's when we have technical debt. So we can build in a Slack card, which is just a card. Maybe it has 5 points, and that card goes into the sprint backlog, and it takes up so that we're not using that velocity on other work. And then we can use that time to refactor the code and to improve the code to make it better for the future. Last one is going to be unclear team progress. And we do that when if we can use a Kanban board and use daily stand-ups to report blockers and to micro commit to what we're going to do in the next section. And if you want to see that, that's page 58, Agile Pain Points and Troubleshooting. And that's come through. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. All right, how did you guys go with that one? Last 3. So project process groups. Initiating. The team is successfully defining project goals, securing stakeholder buy-in, and what's the key word there? Creating that project charter. They're initiating a project. The team is working diligently to develop a detailed schedule, allocate resources, and define the project scope. I think, I don't like the allocate resources, but defining the project scope is planning. Now, if the team is working actively to complete those deliverables, they are executing, coordinating team activities, yes, and managing resource objectives. Yep, that sounds good. The manager is tracking progress. They're monitoring and controlling in the process groups, measuring performance and making adjustments. And if the team has completed all the deliverables and reviewed those outcomes and finalizing the documentation, maybe creating a final report there, that is closing the project. And that is good. That's come through. So page 171 under process groups in the PMBOK guide, 7th edition. Wonderful stuff. Okay, more agile scenarios. Oh, well, we got through the other ones pretty well. So let's see how we go. Reducing the story size and defining the definition of done. Maybe if work is not completed within sprints, we can reduce the story size and make sure we've got the definition of done really, really crisp. Ensure the servant leader or scrum master escalates, problem solves, or clears obstacles if the team is struggling with obstacles. Hold retrospectives regularly with no more than 3 action items for next time if there's no improvement in the team process. Very handy to do. And work with managers of external resources to dedicate them into our team so that we can use the whole team approach. That's if we have siloed teams or people who aren't involved directly close with our project. Page 59, Agile Pain Points and Troubleshooting in the Agile Practice Guide. And that is very good. Really good one to go through, that one. Now, risks, issues, and change. If Billy wants to add a feature to project delivery and the scope is already baselined, he's going to need a change log. Exactly right. Well, I assume that's right. We can always move it. But that seems like the most correct one. Let's see what else we've got just in case. One of the resources has been delayed, which is now impacting the project schedule. It's happening now. It is a project issue. Exactly right. The receiving organization tells you of a regulatory change impacting scope that could happen in the future. We're going to put that in our risk register because it is a risk. It could happen in the future. The team have estimated the activity durations, but noted they are only accurate with their current expertise. They are using assumptions, so making sure that we note those assumptions in the assumption log, and let's check those answers. They've come through as correct. Wonderful stuff. Page 185 under logs and registrars. Yeah, I think that's correct. PMBOK Guide 7th edition, 2021, if you want to check that out for yourself. And that was actually the last one in this session. So wonderful stuff. You've done an amazing job. We got this through that. The time just flew. And you know what they say about that is time flies when you're having fun. I know I was having fun, and I hope you were too. But at the very least, I know that you are doing the right thing to prepare for your PMP exam and also to improve your life, because project management is such an important skill, especially when you're delivering change or managing teams. It is something that's truly going to take your career to the next level and really, really improve your life. I know you can do it. I truly believe that you can pass the PMP exam, and I'll see you in the next set of questions. All right, checking outcomes. A significant number of changes are happening to the project requirements and scope. Okay, so what's the scenario that's leading to these issues? If we've got a lot of changes to the requirements and scope, stakeholders disagree with the project objectives. Let's put that in there for now, and we can always change it. Review the issue register for individual stakeholder challenges and use surveys and interviews. That's going to be dissatisfied stakeholders. And we want to look at the issue register because who's raising the most issues and who's raising the most risks to our project or to the project. They're possibly the most dissatisfied stakeholders, so we can start there. It's such a good way to do it. Project team applies critical thinking and interpersonal skills. They are a high-performing team. The project team adapts to changing situations and is resilient in the face of challenges. Oh gosh, that actually could be, both of those are the same. They're very, very similar. Project team apply critical thinking and interpersonal skills. Maybe that's leadership, and the other one is high performing. I think those two are so similar. I'm just going to have to take a gamble there and see how we go. Okay, that's correct. So PMBOK Guide 7th edition, page 15 under checking results stakeholder and checking results team. So those are really great things to check just for project scenarios. How did you guys go with that one? Pretty good way for us to start off. All right, agile and predictive change methodologies. If a product owner reprioritizes the product backlog and adjusts the product roadmap, that is change in an adaptive way of work or an agile way of work. If a change request is logged as per the process in the change management plan, that's change in a predictive way of work. Project scope changes updated in an adaptive project. Not sure. It seems like this is the only one left. We would update it on an information radiator. Yep, that seems fair enough. And changes communicated to the correct stakeholders in the ways that they prefer. We will check our communications management plan. Let's double check these results. And wonderful stuff. All right. These are pretty good, sort of scenario-based ones, so quite good to go through. And another one, so let's see how we go. Is the project supported by the organization and allowed the resources to proceed? We're going to need the project charter to initiate our project. Is the project on track to realize the intended outcomes in the time frame that we planned them? We're going to need our business case and the benefits management plan. That shows us who tracks the benefits, how we track them, what time frame do we want to realize the project benefits in. So that's pretty good. Does the adaptive project team understand the product requirements? I'm probably going to go with backlog and user stories. So with the backlog and the user stories, that's where we see the product requirements. And sprint reviews is when the stakeholders accept and are satisfied with the project deliverables. So there we go. Let's quickly check. And that has come through as correct. Really well done. Let's see what we've got next. measuring stakeholders, asking project team members to rate their agreement with statements such as, I feel my work contributes to the overall outcomes. We're sort of measuring their engagement or how they're feeling about the project. If it's just a question, we might be doing that with a survey. If we can always change that if we need to. High rates of unplanned team turnover. If we have lots of absenteeism or lots of turnover in the team, we have low team morale. They're not engaged, and that can really affect the speed of our project. Measuring the degree to which a stakeholder or customer is willing to recommend a project or a product to others, that's our Net Promoter Score. We ask, how likely would you be to recommend this to a friend on a scale of 1 to 10? And I think 7 to 10 or 8 to 10 are classified as promoters of the item. And 6 to 0 is a detractor, I think. So you can definitely check me on that one. But the idea is that we want more promoters than we have detractors for our product. To track how stakeholders are feeling, using colors, numbers, or emojis, we can use a mood chart. And let's check. There we go. PMBOK Guide 7th edition under page 103 measures stakeholders. So that's a really, really good thing. Good thing to check in with our project team. Uncertainty. Many interconnected influences that behave in diverse ways reframe or disconnect parts of the system. Okay, I do love VUCA or volatility, uncertainty, complexity, but what is this one? Many influences. This one I think is complexity because it makes things complex and we decouple it to make it more simple. Exactly. So an event that, if it occurs, has a positive or negative effect on one of the project objectives, that is risk because we can have threats or opportunities in risk. The probability or the possibility for rapid and unpredictable change, use alternatives and have reserves at the ready. That's volatility. And it's giving us good ways to handle this, by the way. Reframe or disconnect parts of the system, use alternatives and reserves. Now, the last one, a state of being unclear or having difficulty identifying the underlying cause of events. Use prototypes and experiments to get rid of ambiguity. Exactly right. There we go. That, I feel like that was just a short masterclass in dealing with VUCA, which is really cool. So page 119 to 122, uncertainty in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, if you want to check that out for yourself. I thought that was quite good. All right, estimate ranges. And this is so important when we're first doing an estimate, especially for a customer or for our stakeholders. We want to start by giving a range of -10, no, hang on, what's the biggest one? -25 to +75. And that's our rough order of magnitude. Now, what have we got next? The preliminary estimate, -15% to +50%. As we're getting closer and things are becoming more defined, we can bring in our estimates. The budget estimate, typically what we would put into a budget, we're going to say it's -10 to +25%, and we can often begin our project at that point. Now, the definitive estimate, if we're getting really, really close and we've got more information, -5% to +10%. And the final estimate, when things are actually done and paid for, we have no more wiggle room at all. It is now 0%. It is the final amount. Let's check it out. And there it is. Excellent. That was quite good. I do enjoy those estimates, so that's really good to go through. All right, nearly through this section. Adaptive versus predictive. Predictive, what do we have? We have it's not fixed cost, it's variable cost. Because in Agile, it's Agile where we have fixed cost. We have a fixed team for a fixed amount of time, and they just keep releasing features until the money and the time runs out. In Agile, we're going to have servant leadership. And in predictive, we're going to have directing leadership, a little bit more of a command and control. In predictive, we're going to prefer written communication. so system documents and requirements documents. But in Agile, we prefer face-to-face communication. Now, in predictive, we're going to define the requirements at the beginning, and in Agile, we can progressively elaborate those requirements. Let's double check and see how we went. Excellent work. That has come through. How did you guys go with that one? I do like the Agile and predictive questions. And I also like risk. So, that's great. You've got to, whether you like it or not, we always have to deal with risk on our project. So let's get into this one. Ben is numerically analyzing the effect of uncertainty on the project objectives. He is using quantitative analysis. He's quantifying the risk. Michael is defining the degree, the type, and the visibility of risk management activities for the project. Michael is planning risk management with our risk management plan. How are we going to manage risk? Sarah is finding and categorizing individual project risks as well as sources of overall project risk. Sarah is identifying risk. And Isabel is developing options to address project risk exposure. Isabel is planning risk responses. Let's double check and see how we went. And that is correct. Excellent. Page 113 in the Process Groups Practice Guide, if you want to check that out for yourself. Plan risk management. Very, very good to go through. Now, the last two, the critical path. Everyone loves the critical path. And what is the critical path? It's the shortest time we can complete our project in based on the sequence of tasks that we have to do. So if task B is on the critical path and is delayed by 3 days, okay, so it's on the critical path. We don't want to delay it, but it's delayed by 3 days. What are we going to do? Oh, goodness me, these are, okay. I might need to read a few of these, but we could use lead time. We could lead it forward, so we could say that. We could use schedule crashing or fast tracking as well. We're not going to use lag time because it's lagging behind. We want to bring it forward. We want to lead it forward. So task D is on the critical path and has 2 days of available float. So it has some wiggle room, and we could actually bring that back. We could lag it behind because it has 2 days of available float. So we can use our lag time there. Task A and B are performed in sequence, but can be done in parallel. You know what this one is. Instead of sequence, now we're doing them at the same time. We are schedule fast tracking. There we go. Now let's see what we've got for these two. The team bring task C forward to start it while task D is still being worked on. That is our lead time. So they're using lead time, or they have lead time available, so they can lead it forward. And that means we're going to use schedule crashing to make sure that that task is not affected on the critical path. And let's have a quick check. And there we go, page 262, the critical path method in the Process Groups Practice Guide. Amazing job, guys. And nearly there, we're up to the last one. Scope and quality. If we ensure that the project outputs are complete, correct, and meet customer expectations. I see what's going on here because these are often confused. So validate scope versus control scope versus control quality. These are often confused in a project. So when we're validating the deliverables, that is validating our scope. The customer or the project sponsor will say, yes, this is what I wanted, and I agree that these are ready to release. Oh no, hang on. The formal acceptance of project deliverables, that's validate scope. Now, if we're ensuring that the project outputs are complete and correct, that is controlling quality. There you go. See, it tricked even me. And that's what happens. It's these things are often confused. So we're controlling quality because quality is the amount that it meets customer expectations. So that is the key word there. The process of reviewing and approving changes to the scope is controlling scope, and monitoring the status of project scope and changes to the scope baseline. Oh, goodness me. Changes to deliverables and project documents. Oh, these are all quite tricky. Maybe that one is just perform integrated change control. And if we're monitoring the status of project scope and changes to the scope baseline, that's going to be control scope. Let's have a look. I think we've got this. And we have, thank goodness. That's wonderful to hear. Page 165, perform integrated change control in the process groups practice guide. Now, really quickly, there is a bonus question. If you made it this far, you can leave a comment and say that you made it to the bonus question 111, a magical number that will give you good luck for your exam. And it's around the Myers-Briggs. It's just another Myers-Briggs one, just in case you get this on the exam. And it'll give us some nice tips because enjoying social interaction, that's our extrovert. If we're solitary, that's our introvert. If we're using senses to determine reality and the reality of the situation, that's sensing. If we're using our intuition to find patterns, that's intuition or N. If we're logical and impersonal, that's probably thinking. Feeling, if we're using our feelings and emotions, that's F for feeling. Judging with firm, fast decisions is J. And perceiving with flexibility and seeing all of the different options and being adaptable and flexible, that is P. So just a really quick recap, bonus question right at the end. And I have to commend you on such an amazing job getting through all of these drag and drop questions. You've done a truly incredible job. And with this practice and with this study and with improving yourself every day, I truly believe that you can pass the PMP exam. It's definitely something worth doing as projects are delivering value for organizations every single day. We're making change and doing great things. It's really, really worthwhile, and it's worthwhile having a way to understand how to manage those projects. It's so, so important. You're doing the right thing. I can't wait to hear of your success when you do pass the exam and you do get that pay rise with your PMP. But until then, I'll see you in the next video, and bye for now.